Welcome to the Daily Reporters Roundtable discussion on Foxconn, constructing a new Wisconsin. My name is Joe Iovino, and I'm the Associate Publisher Editor of the Daily Reporter. We've assembled an awesome panel this morning to talk about the upcoming $10 billion project and the need for 10,000 construction workers and additional 6,000 indirect jobs from the construction. I do have a quick note. The Department of Workforce Development Secretary Georgia Maxwell is running a little late, but she will be here in a couple minutes. So before we get started and give the panelists a chance to introduce themselves, I'd like to welcome Brian Fell, a litigation attorney with Milwaukee-based Davis & Kilthau, who is a main sponsor of this morning's event. Brian?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As Joe mentioned, my name is Brian File. I'm a litigator with the Davis & Kilthau construction practice. Along with me today is the president of our firm, Joe Tierney, and also Paget Fisher, our marketing director. First and foremost, thank you to the Daily Reporter for orchestrating this timely discussion, to each of our esteemed panelists from the construction industry and associations for sharing their perspectives and insights, and to each of you for attending today. This is a very exciting era for Wisconsin, and Davis & Kilthau is honored to be one of those helping each and every one of you benefit from this opportunity. Like all of you, we too envision and embrace the positive ripple effect likely to stem from the Foxconn local project. With this wonderful opportunity, however, also come certain challenges. I'm sure you all recognize these opportunities, but you probably also have practical concerns about them, such as how are you going to staff the projects if they should come your way? Are there going to be ample supplies available to you if you get those projects? And as a construction litigator, I would be remiss if I didn't recommend also checking your contract document language, making sure your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed in anticipation of future projects, especially if you're going to be using the newly revised AIA contract documents. Davis & Kilthau has had the privilege of working with a number of you on projects in Wisconsin and beyond our state borders. For those of you who we haven't worked with, we would welcome the opportunity to do so. We are a full-service law firm. We're headquartered here in southeastern Wisconsin. We have a team of over 60 attorneys practicing corporate, labor and employment, and litigation law to service your businesses, whether they're small to mid-size endeavors or a large corporation. Our construction and real estate practice is one of the largest in Wisconsin. We work side by side with top developers, owners, contractors, investors, tenants, architects, and municipalities. Like you, we value seeing cranes in the sky and your employees on the ground. Thank you again for coming today, and please enjoy our discussion.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Now I'd like to give the panelists a chance to introduce themselves. Like I said before, we've assembled a panel of some of the state's most influential construction, governmental, and development leaders. Lady and gentlemen, I'll now give you the chance to introduce yourselves. Dan, if you want to start down on the left there.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Dan Bukevich. I am the president of the Milwaukee Building and Construction Trades Council. I oversee 18 trade unions up in the Milwaukee area and the Fort County area, and we do the large amount of the large work up there. I also serve as the mayor of the city of Oak Creek, a southern suburb of Milwaukee, and I do that in my spare time. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Roger Clark. I'm the president of the Southeastern Wisconsin Building Trades Council, representing the same trades that they represent in Milwaukee. I'm also the business manager of the plumbers and steam fitters for Kenosha, Walworth, and Racine County, and looking forward to the project here.
Good morning. My name is State Representative Corey Mason. I represent the 66th Assembly District, which you are currently in. So welcome to Racine and our beautiful lakefront. I'm also currently a candidate for mayor of Racine, which will have a special election in 55 days, not that I'm counting. But really excited about the Foxconn news and happy to see all of you here today.
Hi, good morning. I'm Georgia Maxwell. I'm the Deputy Secretary of the State Department of Workforce Development, and I'm so happy to be here today. And on behalf of Governor Walker, I would like to thank the Daily Reporter for inviting me to be a part of this panel discussion. This is truly an exciting time not only for Southeast Wisconsin, but for the entire state. Foxconn is the world's fourth largest technology company, and the state has signed a memorandum of understanding to build an advanced manufacturing campus right here in southeastern Wisconsin. This is the largest economic development project in Wisconsin's history, and it's dubbed the Wisconn Valley. Foxconn's investment, in Wisconsin will provide 10,000 direct construction jobs annually over the next 4 to 6 years, and up to 13,000 jobs will be available at the Foxconn campus when it's completed, with workers earning an average salary of $53,000 plus benefits. The construction of the campus will require a $10 billion in capital investments right here in this area. Not only is this by far the single largest economic development project in Wisconsin, but this is transformational. This is a project that will reshape Wisconsin's economy, our workforce, and our education system as it brings the next generation of advanced manufacturing to the U.S. And this is about more than just a new factory. This development will jumpstart an advanced manufacturing ecosystem that will encompass educational institutions at all levels, industry organizations, and the state's top corporations and other institutions. Moving forward, Foxconn's estimated impact is tremendous. Roughly 51,000 jobs could be added, which include indirect and induced jobs and jobs needed during the construction phase. It is estimated that there would be $1.4 billion in an annual supply chain purchase throughout Wisconsin, including a $7 billion annual economic impact to the state. Wisconsin is absolutely ready to take on the Foxconn project. We are in the top 10 business climate with a strong workforce and a world-class education system. And over the last 4 years, Wisconsin has dedicated over $200 million to developing Wisconsin's workforce. At DWD, we stand ready to assist all the employers in meeting the need for skilled workers, and we are ready to meet the challenges that lie ahead in constructing and operating this 21st century technology ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry?
My name is Terry McGowan. I proudly represent 9,300 men and women who run heavy equipment throughout the state of Wisconsin. I'm the president business manager of the operating engineers local 139. We do everything from small underground utilities, small infrastructure projects, but we specialize especially in heavy infrastructure projects. So obviously this is of very interest to us.
Good morning, I'm John Milkey. I'm the president of Associated Builders and Contractors of Wisconsin. I'd like to thank the Daily Reporter and our sponsors today for making this, my fellow panelists for making this possible. It should be an interesting discussion. ABC represents about 860 member firms across the state of Wisconsin. 80% of those are contractor members, and we have members in virtually every county. Happy to be here and look forward to the discussion.
Good morning. I'm Mike Fabishak. I'm the CEO of the agency of Greater Milwaukee. We represent about 350 general contractors, subcontractors, suppliers, service providers. I'm very excited about being here as well, and I'm very excited about discussing this topic, given the fact that I've had a 20-year tenure involved in workforce development and construction. So I'm here not only to express some opinions, but also learn from these other panelists. And thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for being here today and being a part of this historic project. I'd like to start things off on the government side of things. So, Ms. Maxwell and Mr. Mason, can you speak a little bit about what the latest news is on the project and where the future lies?
Well, I think I covered a lot of it in my little opening remarks. So, Representative, I know that the Joint Finance Committee was here yesterday, right here in your backyard. Do you want to talk about the discussion?
Sure. Well, I hope, because the Joint Finance Committee chose to meet in Racine, and we're doing this meeting in Racine, and the Mount Pleasant hired a project manager, that means, of course, it will go to Racine and not Kenosha. But I'm a little biased in my opinion, but I don't have any insider information that would allow me to announce here today or say definitively whether it's going to Racine or Kenosha County. Obviously, I would like it to come to Racine. I think there's real advantages to it, but both communities are putting their best foot forward to vie for this incredible development and employment and technology opportunities. So in terms of sort of the government side, I guess I can talk about sort of the things that people are talking about that I'm sure will come up today and that I hear about, as I talk to business leaders and community leaders. There's one complaint that it's sort of like, to actually have this conversation in Racine, which for too long has been the leader in unemployment in the state of Wisconsin, to have this conversation with employers who are suddenly worried about how do we get the skilled workers we need? How do I keep the workers that are skilled that I currently have? That's a different kind of conversation. That's a conversation we haven't had here in a long time. Those are problems that I'm looking forward to confronting. Right. But there's also just the challenge of, 10,000 construction jobs, do we have 10,000 construction workers just sort of hanging out, waiting to do work? Probably not. I think from a Racine perspective that has a lot of people who are unemployed or underemployed, figuring out how to get them to a place where they can be ready to apprentice and get into the trades and take advantage of this is a tremendous opportunity for Racine as a community, but we've got to seize it. So we need training to start like yesterday. And I know Ola's here, who's with First Choice Pre-Apprenticeship. I know there's discussion of Big Step coming to the area. Those are all potential really good things for the Racine community. We just need to scale them up in a way that we haven't seen before so that people can take advantage of it. And then the other thing that I hear consternation about, concern about, are the environmental regulations and the way they're tweaked in the bill. And people have real concerns, including myself, about how that works and what kind of assurances there might be about the way that it's there. There is, I do want to say this about the bill, as much as I have concerns about the wetlands language and the way it's drafted and what it offers to Foxconn on the construction of it, it is important to remind people, because I've had a lot of misconceptions about it, there's nothing that changes the rules on effluent back to Lake Michigan or wastewater. There's no changes in the law around stormwater runoff. There's no changes on air quality or air permits. And I think it's important for people to know that. I think people are thinking, oh my gosh, if this company comes here, they're going to start dumping heavy metals right into Lake Michigan and it's going to be a disaster. And that's not what the bill says. So I think that's an important distinction. And then people are worried about how can we ensure that if there's going to be all these jobs, that we have as many people from Wisconsin doing those jobs. If it's Wisconsin taxpayers who are going to incentivize $3 billion, are there things that we can do that would preference Wisconsin companies and Wisconsin workers to do the work? So those are the things that I hear being discussed and talked about, and I think and hope that the Senate's going to take a look at it and might make some changes around it. But those are the things that people hear about and talk about. It's an amazing opportunity, and it's really hard to overstate it. But for us to maximize the opportunity for Wisconsin companies and Wisconsin workers, there's some changes that I hope we can see coming down the line.
Well, I think you hit on everything. I think that it needs to be underscored the impact that this project is going to bring and ripple throughout the entire state of Wisconsin. We obviously at Workforce Development hear constantly about workforce. Where are we going to get the people? How will we be able to fill these jobs and be able to meet the need? But we, like you said, Representative, that's a good problem to have. That's a great problem to have, because we do have excellent training programs. We have excellent education institutions. We have excellent training partners. And the apprenticeship program, which was born right here in the state of Wisconsin in 1911, we have a rich history with that. We're very proud of that, and that is something that we're very focused on, have been for a while, but want to ramp up our training efforts to get that skilled workforce to be able to get these jobs to our workers ASAP so that they can start. And not to be forgotten, it will be a destination place to work. People are going to migrate to our state because of this opportunity. It's, they get a chance to come and work at a place that is paying a great salary and live in the state of Wisconsin. And I think that it's going to attract a lot of people to come and move and take advantage of all the great things that our state has to offer. I mean, I was just taken aback by the view as I walked in from the parking lot of Lake Michigan. It's just, it's tremendous. So I think with our training, with our education, and with what the scale of this is going to be. We're going to be able to meet the workforce needs.
And you both touched on it during your talks, but one of the biggest questions that we hear and one of the most pressing questions is where will the skilled workers come from in the construction industry?
Well, we're, for the training center, for us, we're looking at some of the welding procedures and starting with some OSHA 30 classes, making sure everybody's got that, and also preparing for any other procedures that they might need to facilitate the work out there. So we're working with other locals and stuff like that to get information, and our international to make sure that we got the proper procedures and the correct classes for our guys.
On the state building trades, the North American building trades, we've already been in contact with DC. We had a conference a few weeks ago. We got all the presidents within the state building trades together and focused on what our manpower is, what our pipelines look like statewide, area-wide, and our entire network within the Midwest. So we're already taking steps forward to ensure that we can man this if the opportunity does come.
Obviously, all the trades have been recruiting and trying to find enough people who want to get a little dirt underneath their fingernails and work hard in the trades, and it's been a challenge. I guess I do have a concern. You know, by the time this project starts, we expect that the prevailing wage is going to be gone in the state of Wisconsin. When the prevailing wage disappeared on a municipal level, within the first few months of the repeal of the municipal prevailing wage, 53% more of our work went to out-of-state contractors. It doesn't make sense to go out and recruit and train only to see this work go to someone from out of state. And the further south in this state we go, the easier it's going to be for out-of-state contractors to come in here and take our work. I guess that's my concern.
Valid concern.
I would say it reminded me of the scene from Jaws when the sheriff was chumming over the edge of the boat and he caught a glimpse of the shark for the first time and he backed into the wheelhouse and said, "We're going to need a bigger boat. We're going to need a bigger boat." This is going to be a job attracting project, so not only is it going to be work for Wisconsinites, we're going to attract talent from around the area, and that's a good thing. That's a way to grow taxpayers in Wisconsin. And I think if we do this right, it's an opportunity to bring dislocated and displaced workers back into the workforce. If you look at the labor participation rates in Wisconsin, they're higher than national averages, but it's still, we have a very low unemployment rate, but we still have a 68% labor participation rate. There are able-bodied people who, given the right support and conditions, can be returned to the workforce, and that's what we need to do.
The good news, at least from my perspective, is that, and you have to appreciate that a lot of what we do in workforce development is obviously in the Metropolitan Milwaukee area. And as I mentioned earlier, we've been doing this for 20 years. And I'm not sure if people are aware of this, but we have programs operating now that are in our industry that are actually state-of-the-art in national models right now. One of them is the WRTP Big Step, of which I've been involved in for 20 years. And then we have an affiliation with the largest workforce development agency, I think, in the state, which is the Employ Milwaukee. So this is in theory, this is actually happening. So the vehicles are there to begin to deal with this. And I think I would also share that this is going to be an extraordinarily game-changing opportunity to but to continue to both diversify our industry in ways that we've done considerable work in Milwaukee, and I think really raise the boats of a lot of people whose boats have not been raised. And I think we can pioneer in ways that few industries can. And I'm just suggesting that having those mechanisms in place right now put us way better off than any other part of this state.
And I know with the labor shortage going on right now, everybody up here is involved, heavily involved in training. What specific training and education programs do we have to have ready for Foxconn?
Well, from the fitters standpoint, there'd be a lot of welding procedures, purity welding, because I believe there's going to be a lot of stainless on this project. And just maybe possibly some what they call clean room work. So we'll have to train people to get prepped up and gloved, and so those are some of the things that we're focusing on.
This is really this affects all corners of the trade, everywhere from the UA to electricians, laborers, you name it. We need to start at ground zero and fill this pipeline. We need to get people in, give them the education and the formal apprenticeships that existed in this state. As Deputy Maxwell said, we started in 1911. We cannot get away from that model. The building trades has some of the highest standards. We put over $30 million worth of training statewide between the trades into it. We need to maximize that. We need to make sure it's funded. We need to make sure that the work's there that continues to fund that in the union model, and get these people family supporting careers out of it. We're not talking about jobs, we're talking about careers.
Right.
And I think it was Deputy Maxwell said this is historic for Wisconsin. And we're about to write history for the next few generations of Wisconsin. We need to do it correctly to ensure those generations have family supporting jobs, and Wisconsin continues to be a leader in the nation to provide careers, quality of life, education, and everything we cherish. So we're at a point where we can either do things, how can I say this correctly? You're either going to take the easy way out and just do it, but incorrectly, possibly. Or you're going to take your time, vet this out, and do it right. And I guarantee you, if we take our time and we work together and we partner, Wisconsin will be a better place for generations to come. But we have to do our due diligence in this, particularly in the first steps, and that comes with the legislation, and the pressure's on you guys to get this. We need those protections in for training, for infrastructure, for transportation. Somebody made mention Wisconsin's ready for this. Are we? We don't have a budget done yet. We have to scramble to get the infrastructure done in the Racine area. Our bridges aren't there, okay? Our ports need some work. Our airports could be upgraded. There's many things that we gotta get ready for. Education's been cut at the local tech level. We need to refund those things. So, is it a loss? No. But we have to get all those things working in unison together if we're going to write history correctly for the next few generations. But again, within the trades, our pipelines are being filled. We're constantly refilling our numbers. We're out there actively recruiting in the high school levels and for displaced workers. This isn't just a Milwaukee, southeastern Wisconsin, Racine, Janesville problem. This is a statewide issue, and we all need to pull together. That's why at the building trades, we're looking at this as a statewide issue. And more importantly, we've got to keep that money that's being spent by taxpayers in Wisconsin. We need those safeguards. We can't be supplementing other states. Thank you.
We've got legislators out there that have opposed tax incremental funding districts for quite a while. I'll say it. Senator Dewey Stroh. Now he's come out in favor of, this is TIF on steroids, and he's come out in favor of it. And although he has not yet cast a vote, he's come out publicly speaking in favor of it. I say this because they're estimating that these are going to cost up to $17,000 per job. Now, the brunt of this cost is going to be on the working person. They don't have the tax write-offs that other people have, or businesses, corporations. The working people pay their taxes and go to work. I say this because all the trades in the state of Wisconsin, their members, the skilled trades, the members allocate a certain amount of money out of their paycheck towards training and education. The operating engineers, for instance, allocated $1 off of their paycheck towards training and education. That's a true commitment. We are $8.3 million of revenue for training annually. And many of the trades out here have the same. And we are ready. We are ready as long as we are not oppressed, as long as we're not pushed back, as long as there are no more blockades put. Yesterday, a bill was introduced by Kapiga. He wants to control the ratio of apprenticeships into skilled trades. Let the DWD control that. Let them, their experience, give them the tools to do what we have to do. We've been working with the DWD for years, and we've been doing a pretty good job of it. We can handle this. We can train. We're equipped to do it, and we're ready to do it.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So ABC also operates an apprenticeship program. It's a slightly different model, but we have 1,300 apprentices in the state of Wisconsin, and we think that's a fine training program. We obviously believe in it. We've been at it for 30 years. But I also think when you look at a project like this, we need more of an all-of-the-above approach. There are going to be people who are hopefully re-entering the workforce who maybe aren't ready for apprenticeship. Maybe there's pre-apprenticeship opportunities. Maybe there's other wraparound services that we can provide as we bring dislocated workers back into the industry. I'm happy to hear some of the comments down on the other end of the table about cooperation. If you read the Foxconn officials' statements about why they chose Wisconsin over some of the other states, one of those prominent reasons is because Wisconsin showed a cooperation and a competence that other states didn't. And that was public sector, private sector, educational sectors all working together. So if we're going to continue that, and I think we have an obligation to continue that, and to help Foxconn and others like them located in Wisconsin, it's going to take cooperation, and it's going to take everybody kind of pulling on the rope in the same direction. So I look forward to that kind of attitude in the future as we as an industry pick up the next phase of this. You know, hopefully they're going to locate here. Now it's talking about building it here. I think it's an incumbent on the construction industry to show that competence and cooperation that our elected officials and some of our educational leaders show.
Just briefly, Joe, I had an opportunity to chat with a few contractors who understand what Foxconn does, and it's unique. Not all of it's unique, but it is unique. And to a large extent, we're going to find out what kind of training we need from the contractors who are engaged in that work and from those who want to get into that work. But notwithstanding that, I think with a lot of the ancillary buildings and other things, I think we have a pretty thoughtful way of, but we have a pretty well trained and we understand how to handle that. But I think there's going to be some esoteric elements of this construction that are going to require really perspective from the contractors who will be doing the work.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so, you know, again, we talk about the labor shortage. Will this put a strain on the labor, or will some of the projects like Northwestern Mutual and some of the other ones will be wrapped up by the time construction starts here? Will there, in your estimations, be enough of a labor force?
We love workforce. That's right up my alley. I think that we need to think outside of the box and outside of what the traditional workforce looks like in order to get all hands on deck. You know, it's been a big priority of Governor Walker's to get people off of dependence to independence. And we have talent. We have really excellent talent that is located within the incarcerated population. And we've had some very, very effective innovative out-of-the-box thinking, actually right south of here, where we are training via mobile labs people who are currently incarcerated, training them up, getting them the skills so that upon release they're able to, most of them are already placed within a position so that they can get on the straight and narrow and continue to live a successful, fruitful life instead of the ways of the past. And I have been to so many graduations from these explicit training programs that they have, and these men are grateful to have a second chance. There's women too, to have a second chance to be able to do that. And I just want to underscore that is a resource that we as talent development here in the state have to get everyone off of the sidelines. So incarcerated population, people who have disabilities, returning veterans, we just have to reach far and wide and again, to underscore, no talent left behind. We need to get everybody into the game.
I think there's one other institution that hasn't been mentioned here today, which I think is going to be an integral component, also created by the 1911 legislature, and that's the Wisconsin Technical College system. And the oldest technical college in Wisconsin, the first one was established right here in Racine. I think it's actually sort of a testament to that Wisconsin legislature that now, 105 years later, as we're getting ready for the jobs of the 21st century, we're still relying heavily on the apprenticeship model and the technical college model that are still serving us very well and getting us to a place where they're robust enough that they're still working over 100 years later. So for us locally, that means Gateway getting to a place where they can do it. So where the Finance Committee met yesterday at the S.C. Johnson IMET Center out in Sturtevant, and they could literally double that facility and still have not enough people to do some of the workforce stuff that they're talking about here. So it's going to mean a big reinvestment of capital to be able to do that. And then I like what Secretary Maxwell was saying with the all hands on deck thing. I think, for Racine, it's a bit of almost proselytizing for the opportunities that are out here. We've got some great academy models that they're doing in the K-12 level where they're starting to talk to young people instead of just, it's either you applied to college or you didn't, and that's the measure of success, has been transformed into, well, if you're going to college, that's great, but if you're not, do you want to get into the trades? Do you want to be trained in manufacturing? And so even at the high school level, we've already begun to lay the groundwork for people who will be able to do that. But there's also a challenge for people who are unemployed and underemployed. It's harder. There are real challenges to get people to a place to pre-apprentice in ways that, people in this room maybe don't think about. Access to a legitimate driver's license or getting people some of the basic necessities they would need to be able to do this work. That stuff is going to be really important and hard work. But I also think that the workforce that's going to win is going to be the communities that really barrel down and go build that workforce. I mean, it's not just going to magically appear, right? I mean, it's not just going to happen. We're going to have to go out and work it and have a plan and test that plan and do everything we can to get people back to work. One other thing that I'll say about workforce that is the statistic that really sticks in my mind. We applied for a federal Promise Zone grant a couple years ago to address poverty in Racine, and they made us look at a number of statistics. One of them was this: in the city of Racine, there are 78,000 people in the city of Racine. There are close to 11,000 people in the city, 25 or older, without a high school diploma or GED. So that's a real challenge, right? And so when I think about how you get at that population and what the opportunities are for that population, again, their starting point's a little bit further than somebody else's, but with an opportunity like this, either with the trades or working in a facility like that, you start to see the possibilities to working with people who are undereducated or unemployed or underemployed. And I think it's going to be, we're hearing complaints from people already that they're having to raise wages in anticipation of Foxconn coming. That's a great thing to hear. So lots of challenges, but great opportunities.
I would just say, when you talk about a strain on the labor force, and this is just my opinion, one man's opinion, but a few years ago we came down here, and by we I mean the Big Step, WRTB Big Step, for purposes of essentially establishing a satellite office similar to the one we have in Milwaukee. And I think there was a lot of enthusiasm until it got to the funding and to what it's going to take to do that. And I think really, for purposes of the Racine-Kenosha area, and as well as the state, but them specifically, they're going to need to step up. They're going to need to step up in a big way. They're going to need good expertise, people that know what they're doing, and then really who can scale this thing real quickly. So I would urge those who serve this area, the representative in particular, to urge his colleagues to engage in that in a much more deliberate way. The other thing I would add is that all the low-hanging fruit in workforce development is gone. We all know that. We have to get much more creative about finding what I think was referred to as underemployed individuals. And they're there. They're the ones that really are individuals who have capabilities, but they just don't know how to access our industry, which incidentally we don't do an awesome job at. I think we do a good job at it, but we could get a lot better. And the final thing I would add is the thing I love about this is this industry likes challenges. They love challenges. I mean, they trouble them, it worries them, but because of the nature of the way the industry is, we're really up to this task. I certainly feel that.
If I could just add on to Mike's comments that, nationally there are 7 million men between the ages of 25 and 47 who are not in the workforce. We need to bring those people back in the workforce. One of the ways to do that is to provide, and to Representative Mason's point, is to provide some industry-recognized credentials that are stackable so that you can bring people back in, give them the basics to get them started, give them a credential that the industry values, and you can stack additional skills on top of that as time and availability allow. But that's one way to increase the earning potential of those people who have opted out of the labor market for a variety of reasons. So that's an important source of labor. Regarding the wage issue, for the contractors, it's going to be a bit of a headache to staff projects, even the ones we have going in the ancillary development, kind of in the orb of the Foxconn project. But one thing for sure, I think, is it's going to be good for construction workers. You're going to see construction worker wage increases just out of market conditions, and that's a good thing. That's a good job-creating proposition, and that's much of what the state's been after these past 6 years, is creating good-paying jobs.
There's good-paying jobs because there's people like us out there fighting for it. And I agree with you, though, John. I think the demand is going to keep us up there for a while. I also wanted to just kind of echo a little bit of what Georgia said about going after some of the non-traditionals. We've got people out there on the streets right now going into the city, trying to recruit people, men and women. That's what basically, when you say non-traditional, we basically talk about the women. We let the women know what opportunities are available for them in the trades. Nobody recruits veterans more than the skilled trades. We've got helmets to hard hats, combat to construction. The pipe trades have veterans in piping. So every trade out here, and in fact, next to police and firemen, construction is the most popular trade for veterans returning from combat.
Well, I would just like to offer up, this is going to be a tremendous success, and the state stands at the ready to help in any way possible. And the administration, Governor Walker, this is his #1 priority, not to leave any talent left on the sidelines. People who want a job should be able to get a job. In this bill that the legislature is considering right now, there is $20 million put in for training. And there's no specificity about what the training dollars have to do. And I think that the purpose in its author's intention was to let it be available in a non-traditional way or out of the box or not earmarked for certain things, so that the agency, DWD, and our partners, everyone that we're sitting up here with, that we can work together and find a way to utilize that money the best way we can to scale up, to train, to get that training to the right people as quickly as possible and as innovatively as possible. That was a very long way of saying that, I'm sorry. But we're ready, we're open, we want to talk about ways that the trades think that we should approach this. We want to work with our friends in the legislature. We want to work with all of the groups that I mentioned before, people with disabilities, the incarcerated population, our returning veterans, and be able to get them the skills that are needed for the employers ASAP and deliver a great product, a great training program to these individuals in as quick of a time as possible. And that's really something that we haven't done before. This is going to be, I think your comments earlier, it's transformational. This is really the first of its kind, and we have not experienced this. So we're all kind of holding hands and walking into this together, ready to handle and approach it the best way that we can. But I think, the public partnership is really the key.
Dan.
I would agree. It's going to be a short-term strain on us, without a doubt, whether you come from a union background, non-union background. It is going to strain the manpower. We're looking for people now. We came out of a recession. We weren't building a lot of things. We weren't investing back in infrastructure. You didn't see a lot of large buildings going up. Wisconsin took a very conservative approach over the last 20 years. Now all of a sudden somebody opened up a fire hose and we're trying to take a drink out of it, basically is what we're doing. It will be a short-term strain, but I do think as we work together and we get training programs in place, we'll start to get those pipelines. As John said down at the end, displaced workers are going to find their way back into the trades. People, somebody else mentioned it, people from outside the area will migrate here to live, work, and play. We will man the work in one way, shape, or form. But what this really does is it provides mass opportunity for something that's been dormant for quite a while. And that's opportunities in the construction and manufacturing area, which is what Wisconsin used to be known for. As we start to reintroduce these programs and the parents recognize the opportunity for their children in schools, they will get these people enrolled in those training programs, and the schools will start to refund those programs that disappeared. When the IT boom happened, everything in schools shifted towards computer-generated stuff. Be an IT guy. Trades kind of went away. Why? Opportunities weren't abundant. The tables have turned somewhat, and we have the opportunities. So with that, you're going to get an influx. We have recruited from people that were incarcerated. We've recruited from high schools, the inner city. We've done a lot of work, and it's been great work. We've recruited in the high schools, and we've had great success. But keep in mind, there's many contractors out here, and you know as well as me, you can't train these people up in an 8-week program or a 3-month program, 6-month program, and expect them to be productive, put in quality work, and most importantly, be safe. It takes about 10 years to get that good journeyman there. And it's going to take a while. So when I say it's a short-term strain, it is. But as we fill these ranks and we do it correctly with proper training, we're going to have a strong workforce for generations to come. And again, somebody else mentioned it, wages will rise. That's a good thing. Competition's going to push that. Employers that are enjoying a cheap workforce now are going to have to pay more on the end-use jobs. It's just the way it is. But again, it'll make Wisconsin more attractive to be that place to live, work, and play.
And the beauty with the apprenticeship, I think, also is you can, especially for the fitters, they could get their welding cert. That's one of the first things they start out with is welding. So if they get a welding cert for some of the procedures there, they don't have to be a journeyman to go out and perform that work. As long as they have that certification, they're able to perform that work. So that's some of the things that we'll be concentrating on to make sure that the guys, or the talented ones, I mean, Terry had mentioned the veterans. The UA has a VIP program that we bring veterans in, train them at every facility in the state. They spend 1 week there. They start out here at Sturtevant, go to Milwaukee, and then they go to La Crosse in the western part of the state, then they wind up in the Fox Valley. And then after that, there's a 12-week program that they spend on the job training, and we work on placing them guys into an apprenticeship. So it's been successful. We've had a few guys wash out. It's tough for them as they're transitioning back into the work force. So we look forward to working with them. And any of these young kids that come out of school, you know, as we mentioned, working with the high schools, we try to utilize them too if they're kind of a car buff or anything like that. If they have any skills on that order, we try to capture them too.
Great. As we run short on time here, before I open it up for questions, is there anything that anybody on the panel wants to talk about that we didn't get to?
I would just say, Joe, that keep in mind that this is a job-attracting project. We've got 56,000 people who live in Wisconsin and work in Illinois, and we've got 28,000 people who live in Illinois and work in Wisconsin. Those numbers are going to change, and it's going to be to the benefit of Wisconsin as we grow those taxpayers. You look at some of the reasons cited for Wisconsin. The first two was it was close to Illinois, and with all due respect to my friends from the south of the border, it was close to Illinois, but the third reason was it wasn't Illinois. Wisconsin had a lot going for it, so I think the location anticipates drawing in from that larger workforce in the northern Chicago area, and we should celebrate having those people come and live and spend money in Wisconsin.
I would caution the balance. I know before I mentioned the $17,000 per job, and a lot of people are saying, well, this isn't money that we have to give to them. This is just a tax break. Well, there's going to be a major infrastructure that's going to have to be built. There's going to have to be a major infrastructure built off of our interstate, a major infrastructure for a water line, and it's a delicate balance because obviously the biggest challenge in our budget right now is transportation. What's going to happen to the road construction? What's going to happen to our roads in the northern part of the state? This is going to be a huge drain. If they don't find a balance, they have to strike a balance. And I just also want to add, I applaud the fact that this was brought to Wisconsin. I've always felt that because we are in the Great Lakes Basin, that industry and technology will come back to us because of our fresh water. We have the largest freshwater reserves in the world, and obviously Foxconn needs that fresh water.
Let me just add, picking up on what Terry just said about transportation, that I do think is exciting for this area, but needs to be done. One of the challenges that some of you may have noticed driving into town, you get off the interstate, you have to drive for a little while before you get all the way downtown. And there's been much discussion for many years about, is there some sort of spur or other sort of infrastructure that we would need to get people closer to the city faster, whether that's 794 coming further south as it was supposed to do 30 years ago before people in Milwaukee decided they hated interstates, or some sort of spur coming in from the south, or where it would be. But we're the biggest city, the furthest from an interstate in the Midwest, and that's a real challenge for us. The other thing I'll just share with you, I've heard 3 people as I've been knocking on doors who expressed real interest on Foxconn. Interestingly, all 3 of them were employed currently. One single mom has 2 jobs, actually, and one of them's third shift, and she's looking for a job where she might be able to work 1 job and raise her family. So she's excited about this. I talked to a union carpenter who'd been talking about rebuilding the I-94 corridor for, seems like 10 years. I remember doing a press conference with Steve Buffalo and some other guys about wanting to expand that literally 10 years ago. And another guy who, has a job where he has no benefits. Like, he makes a decent wage, but, he used to have a good union job in the 90s that had healthcare benefits and a pension and a middle-class job, and he hasn't had that in 20 years. And so the compelling stories that I've heard about people that are hungry for this work, they already have jobs. They're just underemployed and not quite making it into the middle class. So this job is as much about them as it is about getting people who aren't in the workforce at all. And I think about that a lot as we're getting ready to take this on.
I guess just going forward, some of the concerns I guess I really have question-wise is with the proposed bill, I'd really like to see some protection for local workers and local businesses, particularly our contractors. Wisconsin is funding it. We're footing the bill for this for generations to come. Our businesses and the people that pay the tax should be protected. Now again, I'm not against people traveling up from Illinois to do their part, but if a large number of them come, that money goes back out. We're supplementing them. That's kind of like being the only person in the neighborhood that has a pool and everybody comes and swims in it for free, eats your snacks, and then leaves you with the mess. So it's kind of a childish analogy, but that money's going to flow out. You're going to lose income tax. They're going to take it back to their home employers. Businesses, local businesses will have a hard time competing. We really have to build in some safeguards for that particular thing. At the 30,000 foot level, I don't want to sound like I'm against this because this is an incredible once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You get up there, the spin-off developments, the support companies, that have to support them with widgets and sand and cookies and cakes and rugs and whatever comes with it is going to be huge. And they're going to spread out through Mount Pleasant, Kenosha, all areas of the state. That's a positive. I can tell you, I'll just switch hats real quick to the mayor of Oak Creek. We're checking our single family home inventory up there because it's a great place to live. We got a lot of new amenities up there, so we'd love to have the workers come up there.
As an Oak Creek resident, I thank you.
Well, and I think, you know, we're talking about the construction of Foxconn, but let's not forget that the infrastructure is going to be housing, apartment buildings, single-family homes. We've talked about the transportation, the roads, and I know that's a little bit separate, but the building is really going to be tremendous and vast, and it's going to cross all sectors.
Yeah, the residential contractors are really excited about any new development coming into town. We've been very busy in our local with the plumbers. Currently, they're always looking to bring more guys in and put on more apprentices, so that's a good thing.
Great, thank you. Questions for the panelists? Yes, sir, I'll be right there.
Thank you. I'm George Schroeder, trucking from Burlington. I've been in the dump truck rental business for going on 45 years. Recently, I've talked to Terry McGowan, and I'm a big believer in, if we're talking, Dan, you were talking about wages, and basically, I've had meetings with DOT for 20-some years. I'm a big believer in prevailing wages. I think that would, for my industry, I always felt it was a necessity to have that, which basically, yes, it inflates the rate of the trucking, but it also brings the quality of the driver. They repealed this back in 25 years ago, and the trucking industry has been nothing but struggling since. I really think that what Terry said about prevailing wages, the legislators, Gloria, you really need to go back to talk to the legislators, because repealing prevailing wages is devastating my industry. We cannot, there are at least a dozen trucks in Milwaukee that are sitting presently because owners cannot afford to pay more than $12 an hour for a driver. So those trucks sit. With this kind of a project coming, I have no clue where the equipment's coming from. If the legislators don't help this problem, the industry is, I don't know where it's going to go. Dan, you had some great ideas. All you guys have great ideas, but the bottom line is we have to make a decent living. Those guys that are behind the steering wheel going down the interstate every day, you have no idea who they are, what training they have, where operators have training. So it's just unbelievable what goes on today. My kids, when they were old enough to drive, I told them all, do not follow dump trucks. That's all I can tell you, because I know what the equipment that's out there. So we really need help from the legislators on this problem. All I can say is I live and breathe this, and this is my opinion. So thanks for your time.
Questions? Yeah. Yes, sir.
My name is Ola Bayeu. I run a pre-apprenticeship training program here in the city of Racine. The thing I am going to say here may befuddle some of you. We continue, and we have done it in the past, work with workforce development agencies in the Racine, Kenosha, Milwaukee area. In 2008, we received a grant from the state to help train people from the Tri-County, Racine, Kenosha, Wildwood counties, for the reconstruction of the I-94. We did a successful job. It was just for 3 years. Unfortunately, the state suspended the Racine portion of the I-94. Now, collaboration and cooperation is very, very important. We cannot compete with a program that is in Milwaukee, because Mike Fabershek just mentioned it. They wanted to open a satellite office in this place. My concern is this. If Big Step comes here, because they said they were going to open a satellite office and work with us, so that we have a collaborative program. We want to upscale what we do. If they come here, our program in Racine, which is unique to the people who live in Racine and Kenosha, we cannot compare apples and oranges. Milwaukee is a 600,000 population. Racine is just 80,000 people. When you look at the numbers we have done, we have been very successful. So my question is this: how are you going to help a small local initiative be part of this project? How are you going to do that? Is it by legislation? Is it by talking about that $20 million that you set up for training? I understand that, you know, you have the technical colleges and universities. They are going to do their part. The people we work with in our program are people who are underemployed, disadvantaged, they look like me, and they are women and Latinos. We have increased the number of those individuals. Look at our market. The market is smaller than Milwaukee, but we've done a great job. We have written the toolbox. When we started this program, because I've asked the question, now I'm just pontificating now. When we started this program, for your knowledge, for your information, we created this thing so that everybody who comes to our program takes something to their family. We had a reading portion of it. They have to read a book. We did nutrition because their children go to school. If they read, their children are going to read. Nutrition, they buy proper nutritious foods. Guess what? Their children are going to do well in school. And then we had financial literacy. That was like 18 years ago. And we've presented at apprenticeship conferences just talking about what we do. I have a self-interest in this. So I want to hear from the panel. What are you going to do so that this local initiative doesn't go away?
So ABC has been working with about 6 smaller community-based organizations. Big Step is a fine program. They have a good track record and they do good work. We don't happen to be affiliated with them at this time, but we're working our way through other smaller CBOs. And if I understood your question correctly, the acoustics are a little difficult in the room, but I mean, I want to talk to you. I want to give you my business card. Each one of those relationships are different, and each one of those organizations brings something slightly different to the table, and the way we interface with them is slightly different and unique to the circumstances. But it sounds like you're the kind of provider we're looking to partner with.
Yeah.
We have apprentices through you, okay? The thing about it is that really bothers me the most is this. People who look like me in this region, Milwaukee, Racine, Kenosha. I'm not talking about Milwaukee. I'm talking about Racine and Kenosha. People who look like me want to be in the trades, but they always have this problem. People are going to tell us they have a drug problem, they are lazy. Guess what? 10 years, we have 325 journey workers. They started as apprentices. They came through Osprey, apprenticeship, 6 weeks training, full-time, unpaid. Contractors who come to visit us tell us we have a great program. But at the end of the day, you know, they're going to do something else. That's, you know, I can't give you all my grievances. Because if I do, you know, I'm going to disappoint so many of you who are here because I know some of you. What have you done for me lately?
Just to kind of touch on that, the problems you experience and the things you see down here, they really don't know color or gender. We experience the same problems up in Milwaukee with failed drug tests, lack of reading skills, things like that. Community-based organization programs are essential, and they're all going to feed in. I think we established that early on that it's going to be all hands on decks coming from everywhere. There's a big enough piece of pie here for everybody, so I wouldn't feel threatened by other programs coming in. You may have the ability to get extra funding and actually learn what they do effectively and model some of your things after them or feed into them and be even more effective for the people you serve. So I think there's just great opportunities for a lot of community-based organizations going forward.
So I first got to meet Ola and First Choice Pre-Apprenticeship when I guess almost 10, 11 years ago now, when Representative Turner and I co-chaired the Labor Development Committee for the I-94 rebuild, and really came to appreciate the challenge of developing workforce in the trades. And OLA has a great program. I think one of the other panelists said it though, it's, funding on this stuff is often fleeting, right? I mean, when I-94 was going, there was a nice big grant that was available, and then OLA continued to do the work, but there was no more grant money. And I think the challenge for all this is going to be, how do we identify great programs like First Choice and keep them going, but get them to a capacity where we're not training dozens of people a year, but we're training scores or maybe hundreds of people a year who can do the work. And so that's certainly using things like First Choice to their capacity, and either helping him scale up or partner with somebody else to be able to do that. But it is an ongoing challenge that I think was mentioned from the folks from Big Step too. It just, you've got to have a consistent funding source if you want to create this pipeline, and we haven't really had a huge funding source to be able to do that the way they have in other communities. I'm hoping this is one of the benefits that comes from the Foxconn announcement, is that there will be resources available to fund exactly these kind of programs. But from my perspective, First Choice is exactly the kind of program you want to herald and continue to flourish and not be swallowed up or lost in the cracks of a very large economic development project.
Can I speak to that real quick? Because you referenced my name, I heard you. And God bless you, by the way. We're going to need everybody. I mean, First Step's going to have to be here, Big Step, anybody who knows what they're doing in workforce development. So I don't think anybody's going to get excluded. I mean, this is all hands on deck. This is like, everybody's got to be engaged. So I don't want for a moment to imply that from my perspective, that wouldn't happen. All I'm saying is this is big scale. And with all due respect to First Step, and quite frankly to Big Step, I'm not certain if that's going to be enough juice to do it. But if we all kind of pitch in and we get ourselves organized, we work through the workforce development agencies, and both in Milwaukee County and Racine County and the state, I think we can get this done. So I think we're all on the same page. This is not about being adversarial. This is about cooperation.
Luis Garcia with the North Central States Regional Council of Carpenters, and I just want to follow up on what the gentleman was talking about, and you're absolutely right. It's about collaboration, and also the main thing about this, I believe, that if it's not written down and the safeguards are not put down by the legislation, just like they're writing it, they're going to give them $3 billion, and so all these safeguards has to be implemented and put and model somewhat in what has been used in the Milwaukee with the Northwestern Mutual Tower being built, with all the preference programs and the percentages. All that has to be worked into this. Otherwise, it's going to be just a chaos with this massive amount of people that are going to be working out here, union and non-union, in this massive project. But that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, Joseph.
I wanted to just briefly add on what you were saying. I think within our industry in general, just look at the Daily Reporter on Fridays. I mean, we are doing some really, really great stuff in terms of training. From a volunteer standpoint, I think that fortunately a lot of us have a very large microphone. I mean, a lot of the construction companies are just awesome corporate stewards and in the communities, not just as it relates to Foxconn, but things like American Cancer Society, other things. And I think, like they said, I mean, we're obviously all in this together, but I also think it's really important not to lose sight of the fact that I think that I'm probably a little biased, but I think we have some of the best people. I mean, in terms of trying to make a difference, on a local level in their communities, but also from a training standpoint. I just wanted to add that because I think, like you said, I think that's a really, really important thing to always keep in mind. We have some really great people trying to make a difference.
Thank you. Question?
Hello, James Huffman, Huffman Construction. I understand that accelerated construction delivery techniques are going to be required for this project. The question really is asked to both Mike of the AGC and John of the ABC. The Foxconn bill does authorize design build as a delivery technique for that. I'm wondering what steps you may be taking to help educate your contractor members on this technique and maybe speak to some of the advantages that that method may have for timeliness of construction.
So from a public policy standpoint, ABC's position is that we think public works projects ought to be delivered using the lowest responsible bidder. And I understand, I mean, we can get into an esoterical debate about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but the shorthand is we think that that's the most transparent process. Is it always the fastest process? Is it always the cheapest process? Maybe not. It's hard to compare apples and oranges. But that's our basic position as an organization. With regard to the flexibility in the enabling legislation on Foxconn, I believe that's limited primarily to the wastewater treatment plants, if I'm not mistaken, and the sewer infrastructure. It might be some road, you would know better than I, but as I understand it right now, the wastewater treatment facilities in Wisconsin aren't bound by the lowest responsible bidder to begin with. So I'm not sure it's that dramatic of a shift. That would be my response.
I think your question was, what are we doing about educating our contractors? We have programs at AGC that deal with project delivery. The Agency of America does. We've been doing that for years. I think what John speaks to is interesting in that when this project begins to get unfold, undoubtedly design build is going to have to be a part of it. I mean, I think just the nature of the complexity of this project would suggest that that would be a part of it. Now, whether it is or not, I don't know, but in answer to your question, yeah, we do plenty of training and advising our members as to the merits of not only that delivery system, but other ones as well.
Yeah, and that's an important point, Mike. I guess I would just draw the distinction. Our members, ABC members, use design build every day, right? In the private sector, our position as it relates to the lowest responsible bidder deals specifically with public construction projects.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Up here.
In front.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mindy Gertner, and I work for Dakota Intertech Corp., a general contractor that is MBE, SBE, and DBE certified. So I want to know what is currently being undertaken right now to ensure minority business enterprise participation, small business enterprise participation, and everybody else.
I guess I'll take it, and based on past agreements we've done on bigger projects throughout the area, whether it was Northwestern, the new Bucks Entertainment District, we write that right into any contract we put in. We encourage a percentage of typically 25% MBE, DBE, SBE. We'll go so far in the arena, we will call out women participation, minority participation in our agreements. We want to grow that, and that's where the residency program comes in so strongly. And that's where I think the legislators could make a difference by requiring Wisconsin residents to be on these jobs. There's a bid amendment out there that calls to that specifically, and I would encourage you to really look at it and make sure your ducks are in a row before you vote on anything, because we have to protect people like her and Brian out there, and we need them to prosper.
Obviously, with some government money, federal and state, involved in this incentive, there's going to be some incentive for minority, but I can speak, kudos to the building trades, because back when they allowed PLAs, the bar was set very high at 40%. I don't think you'll see that out of the government, but they killed that unicorn.
As you might imagine, I have a different opinion on that. The important thing about the legislation with regard to project labor agreements, the only thing it banned is union-only project labor agreements. You can have project labor agreements that have DBE, MBE requirements. You can have community employment provisions in project labor agreements. Project labor agreements still exist, just not government-mandated union-only project labor agreements.
But just to correct you, John, a labor agreement isn't just a union agreement. You can participate as a non-union contractor, and you're always welcome.
Yeah, and in fact, if it's not union only, it wouldn't be prohibited under the legislation.
Well, and with all of that said, I'd like to say,
I let most of them go, but I had to answer.
kudos to this event here today and to the Daily Reporter and to the sponsor, Davis and Kilthau, for sponsoring lunch. But look at this room. I mean, I just appreciate the fact that you have the business in this room, you have the labor representation in this room, the workers, the legislature, the executive branch. What we have here is everybody working together. And let's not lose sight of Foxconn is considering Wisconsin because of the people that make Wisconsin, Wisconsin. And we can put all of that other stuff into our little boxes and envelopes and those kind of things, but we're all in this together, and it's gonna be a success or a failure because of all of us together. So I wanna give kudos to the fact that this room is full. It's great to see so many people here, and it's great to be a part of something so diverse as this group up here. So thank you to the organizers.
That's nice of you to say, Georgia.
I'm a nice person.
You're the best. Yes, you are.
I think that's a good way to end. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our sponsors, especially Davis and Kilthau. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. There's lunch in the back.